The unexpected war. The stars were quiet that night. The planet Valeri was calm, its purple skies glowing as two moons floated above. No one knew that by morning, everything would change. Liara sat on the edge of a cold stone balcony, looking up at the stars. She was young, only 18 in Earth years, but her eyes held the sadness of someone older. Her long silver hair blew in the wind as she watched transport ships fly across the night sky. Her family belonged to the noble class of the Valari, a proud and ancient alien race. But wealth and pride could not hide the truth. Her family was in deep debt. Inside their stone mansion, voices were rising. Her father was shouting again. Her mother's voice was sharp, cold. "We have no choice," her mother said. "If we don't sell her, the collectors will take everything. She's just a girl," her father replied, but his voice was weaker now. Liara knew they were talking about her. This wasn't the first time she had heard whispers about being sold. A trade, a deal, a contract. She was not a person anymore. She was a price. That night, she didn't sleep. Before sunrise, they woke her up. They dressed her in soft robes, gave her no food, and let her out without a word. She didn't speak either. What was there to say? Outside, a transport shuttle waited. 2 guards from the trade guild stood beside it. One of them handed her father a credit chip. Her father didn't meet her eyes as he took it. The door closed behind her. The shuttle took off. And then, everything went wrong. As the shuttle passed through the outer sky layer, alarms began to scream. Bright flashes hit the windows. The ship shook violently. "What's happening?" Liara cried out. The guards shouted into their comms, but it was too late. The sky above Valeri exploded into fire. Hundreds of ships were falling from orbit. A war had started, without warning. From the stars came massive dark ships, not Valeri, not human, unknown. Liara's shuttle was hit. It spun out of control and slammed into a desert far from any city. She blacked out. When she woke, the air was hot, and the sun burned her skin. The shuttle was broken in half, one engine still smoking. The guards were dead. She was alone. Far above, 2 massive fleets clashed in the sky. One was the unknown alien invaders. The other, humans. She had heard of humans before. Strange, emotional creatures. Smart, unpredictable, dangerous. And yet, they were fighting the invaders. Why? She stumbled from the wreckage, her feet sinking into red sand. She walked for hours with no water, no direction. Her mind was dizzy. Her legs shook. Then, just as the sun started to set, she saw a strange figure walking toward her. He was tall. His armor was scratched and burned. He held no weapon. A human. She froze. He looked at her carefully, then raised both hands slowly to show peace. "Are you hurt?" he asked in her language. She blinked. How did he know Valari tongue? "I think so," she said. He came closer and handed her a small water bottle. She grabbed it and drank too fast, coughing. "My name is Jace," he said. "Liara," she replied, her voice soft. "Looks like you're not part of the fight," he said, glancing at her robe. "I was sold," she said before she could stop herself. "My family. They traded me." Jace didn't laugh. He didn't question her. He just nodded. "Come on," he said. "You're not safe here." She hesitated. "Why help me? I'm nothing to you." He looked at her for a long moment. Then he said, "No one is nothing." He turned and started walking. After a second, she followed him. She didn't know it then, but that step would change everything. The humans' camp. Liara followed Jace through the desert. Her feet hurt, her throat was dry again, and her legs were weak, but she kept walking. There was something calm about this human. He didn't ask too many questions. He didn't stare at her like others had. He just moved forward, like someone who had seen too much to be surprised by anything anymore. After an hour, they reached a small rocky ridge. Hidden behind it was a half-buried ship, clearly damaged, but it looked like it had been turned into a shelter. "This is it," Jace said, crouching to open a metal hatch. "Not fancy, but it keeps the sand out." Inside, it was cool and dark. He had lights, a generator, a food pack stash, and a medkit. It wasn't much, but to Lara, it felt like safety. She sat on a crate and looked around silently. Jace handed her a protein bar. "Not royal food," he joked, "but it'll keep you alive." She took it. It tasted like dust and salt, but she didn't care. It was the first food she had tasted in a day. He handed her a fresh cloth. "For your arm," he said. She hadn't even noticed the cut. She looked down and saw blood had dried over her elbow. "You're kind. For a human," she said quietly. He gave a small smile. "You're kind. For someone who called me a savage a minute ago." She turned red. "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to." For the first time, she laughed. Just a little. A tiny sound, but it surprised her. Jace sat across from her and looked at a small screen. Wars spreading fast. Those ships weren't ours, and they weren't yours either. "Do you know who they are?" "No, but they're taking prisoners." Lara froze. "What will they do to them?" Jace didn't answer. He didn't have to. That night, she couldn't sleep. She kept seeing her parents, the trade ship, the fire in the sky. And now, this stranger was risking his own safety to help her, for no reason. She got up and walked outside. The desert was quiet under the stars. For a moment, it felt like a dream. Behind her, Jace stepped out and stood beside her. "I don't understand," she whispered. "Why do you care?" He shrugged. "Because I've seen too many people look the other way. Even for someone like me." He looked at her, and his voice was steady. "Especially for someone like you." She looked down. "My family didn't see me that way." Then they were blind. Something in her chest shifted, a strange warmth. Not love. Not yet. But the feeling of being seen. Of being real. Suddenly, a sharp sound echoed through the air. Jace pulled her down fast, covering her with his body. A drone flew past overhead. Black, fast, and scanning the desert. "They're searching," he whispered. "They'll come back." He took her hand and pulled her back into the shelter. Inside, he opened a hidden floor panel and pointed down. "You'll hide here if I say so. Promise me that." She nodded. "Good." He started gathering supplies, water bottles, energy packs, a small rifle. Lara watched his movements. He was focused, calm, like someone who had done this before. "Were you a soldier?" she asked. He didn't look up. "Not anymore." "What happened?" "I saved the wrong person." She didn't ask more. His eyes said enough. The night stretched on. Jace stayed up, watching the screen, checking the sky. Lara sat nearby, pretending to rest, but her thoughts wouldn't stop. She had been treated like a price tag her whole life. Used, sold, forgotten. But now, a human, someone completely different from her people, was treating her like someone who mattered. She didn't know why it felt so strange, or why it felt so right. The silence was broken by Jace's voice. "You're not a slave anymore, Lara." She looked at him. "You're free now," he said. "The trade guild hunts them." The sun hadn't even risen when the sound of engines broke the quiet desert air. Lara sat up quickly. Jace was already awake, standing at the screen, jaw tight. "What is it?" she asked. "Trade guild ship," he said, voice low. "They're sweeping this region." Lara's stomach turned. "Are they looking for me?" "Most likely," he replied. "Or just rounding up anyone left alive." Outside, the sand shook with the low hum of an approaching hovercraft. Jace closed the screen and pulled open the hatch in the floor. "In," he whispered. Lara slid down without question. He covered the hatch with a metal plate and threw a blanket over it. She lay under the floor in total darkness, holding her breath. She could hear everything. The ship landed. Heavy boots crunched outside. Voices in trade guild accents barked commands. This is Unit 7. No bodies. One heat signature, human. Jace's voice came through calm. I'm alone. Ship crash landed 2 days ago. What's your business on Valari soil? Crash. Nothing more. Identification. Pause. She imagined Jace holding out some fake badge or code. A long silence followed. Then came another voice, cold and sharp. We're searching the shelter. Boots stomped inside. Lyra held her breath, pressing a hand over her mouth. A floorboard creaked directly above her. She's not here, one voice said. Still warm down here, another said. Like someone else was here. Lyra's heart pounded. She expected shouting, weapons, fire. But then she heard something unexpected. Laughter. That old story again, the officer mocked. The human war savior, hiding some poor slave girl. Let's move, said the leader. She's worth more dead than hidden. Their boots faded. Minutes passed before the hatch opened again. Light poured in. Jace reached down. They're gone. Lyra crawled up, her body shaking. She sat on the floor, her arms hugging her knees. They would have killed me, she said softly. Jace nodded. Or worse. Why do they want me? Because to them, you're still property. And property doesn't run. She looked up. Then I'll never stop running. He crouched in front of her. You don't have to run. She blinked. What do you mean? I can take you off-world. There's a place. Safe. Far from the trade guild. But we'll have to move fast. You'd do that for me. He smiled gently. You're not someone I leave behind. That day, they packed everything. Jace buried most of his equipment. They only carried what they could strap to their backs. As they hiked toward the cliffs, Jace told her about the ship, a small smuggler's vessel he had hidden in a cave long before this war began. It's old, he said, but it flies. They walked for hours. The desert stretched endlessly ahead, dry and cruel. Lyra's robe tore in the wind, and her feet were blistered, but she didn't complain. She just kept walking beside him. As the sun lowered, she saw smoke far in the distance. Jace stopped. His face grew tense. That's not good. What is it? They're burning refugee camps, clearing the land. She stared in horror. People live there. Not anymore. Lyra swallowed hard. Your people, they fight for others. Why? Jace looked up at the orange sky. Because someone has to. They reached the edge of a sharp drop where the land cracked into deep ravines. Hidden among the rocks was a dark cave. He led her inside, lighting the way with a small torch. At the far end was a ship. Small, dusty, with scratches and repairs across its body. But it was real. You've had this the whole time? She asked. Just in case, he replied. She stepped closer. It's beautiful. It's old, but strong. She looked at him. Like you. He chuckled. Maybe. As he opened the hatch, she paused. If we leave, she asked, what am I then? If I'm not a slave, not a daughter, not someone's property. Jace turned and looked her in the eyes. You're someone who gets to decide for herself now. She took a breath. For the first time in her life. That felt possible. But just as they began loading the supplies into the ship, the alarm lit up red. Tracker signal, Jace muttered. They followed us. A small dot blinked on the screen, getting closer. We've got company, he said. And in that moment, for the first time in her life, she believed it. Escape through the storm. Jace didn't waste a second. He slammed the hatch shut and started the engine. The ship groaned like an old beast waking up, lights flickering as systems powered on. Lyra held onto a side rail, her heart racing. Are they close? She asked. They're too close, he replied, fingers flying over the controls. Outside, the narrow cave entrance flashed with red lights, spotlights from guild drones scanning the rocks. The ship's engine screamed louder. Dust fell from the ceiling. Lyra looked at Jace. "Can we make it out?" His eyes locked with hers. "We have to." The ship roared to life and shot forward. The nose scraped the cave wall. Sparks flew. Lyra braced herself as the ship burst through the narrow exit, right into the open desert sky. Behind them, 2 guild hunter ships gave chase, their engines howling. "They're faster," Lyra shouted. "But I know this land," Jace said, voice calm but sharp. "Hold tight." The sky darkened ahead. A massive sandstorm was building over the canyon fields. Thick clouds twisted in the wind like a monster waking up. "We're going into that," Lyra cried out. "It's our only shot." Lightning flashed inside the storm. Wind shook the ship violently. Lyra's hands gripped the seat, knuckles white. She could barely see anything through the cockpit glass, just flashes of sand and clouds and fire. The guild ships stayed behind for a moment. But then, to her horror, they'd followed them into the storm. "They're not backing off," she said. "They will," Jace said, "or they'll crash trying." He pulled a sharp turn. The ship dropped fast, diving through the storm clouds. Turbulence slammed them from all sides. Alarms beeped. Sparks danced from one of the control panels. "Left thrusters hit," Jace said. "We're not flying. We're falling now." Lyra turned pale. "We're going to crash. Only if I blink." He gritted his teeth, pulled the ship hard to the right, and slammed a control lever forward. The ship leveled out, barely, skimming just over the rocky ground. Behind them, one of the guild ships clipped a cliff and exploded into the side of a canyon. "One down," Jace muttered. The second one stayed in pursuit, dodging the storm like a predator locked on prey. Suddenly, a strange idea struck Lyra. "There's a ridge up ahead," she pointed. "There's a cave under it. I used to go there as a child." Jace looked at her. "You sure?" "Yes, deep enough to hide. Narrow enough for only us to fit." He nodded. "Guide me." She moved beside him, pointing through the glass, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Left. Up. Now cut between those 2 rocks." The ship obeyed like it could feel her will. They darted between pillars of stone, and just as the second guild ship prepared to fire, a sharp turn and drop brought them into the cave. The enemy ship flew past, missing them entirely. Inside, the space was just wide enough. Jace powered down the engine. Everything went silent. Outside, the sandstorm screamed like a beast denied its prey. For a few moments, neither of them spoke. Then Lyra exhaled. "We made it." Jace leaned back in the pilot's seat. "Barely." She looked at him, face lit by the dim glow of emergency lights. "You trusted me," she said softly, "even though you didn't have to." "I told you," he said. "You're not alone anymore." There was something in his voice, tired but sincere. She didn't know what it meant yet, but it felt right. She reached out, touching his arm lightly. "Thank you." He didn't pull away. They sat there as the storm roared outside, the small ship their only shelter from a world that wanted both of them gone. Lyra whispered, "I don't want to run forever." Jace looked at her. "Then maybe it's time we stop running and start fighting back." Her eyes widened. "Fight the trade guild." He smiled. "Not just them. Fight for the ones they think don't matter." She stared at him. "That's crazy." "Maybe," he said, "but maybe crazy is exactly what this galaxy needs." And for the first time, she smiled too. The price of freedom. The storm passed slowly. For hours, Jace and Lyra remained in the silence of the cave, their small ship resting against the stone like a tired animal. The outside world was still dangerous, but the winds had quieted. Now came the harder part, deciding what came next. Lyra sat near the ship's exit, knees pulled close to her chest, eyes on the sand outside. The world felt heavy. The escape was over, but her life was still in pieces. Jace stood beside the control panel, rewiring part of the engine. He hadn't spoken much since they landed, but when he finally did, his voice was calm. "We'll need fuel if we want to reach the next system." Liara didn't turn. "Where do we get it?" He hesitated. "There's a trade station. A black market one. Old, hidden, run by smugglers. Dangerous, but we don't have many choices." She nodded. "Let's go." But he didn't move. "There's something else," he said slowly. She looked up. He walked over and crouched beside her. "There's a price. For the fuel. For you." She blinked. "What do you mean?" He looked her straight in the eyes. Word spread fast after the guild attack. "You're now marked, alive, and escaped. Some people want to help you. Others want to collect." Liara's heart sank. "So I'm still a product. A thing to trade." Jace shook his head. "Not to me." She held his gaze. "Then why are you telling me this?" "Because you need to understand what freedom costs." Liara didn't speak for a while. Her thoughts circled like birds over an empty field. "Then I'll pay it," she said finally. "Whatever it takes." He watched her closely. "Even if it means risking your life again." She nodded. "If I stay silent, they win. If I run forever, I stay in chains. I'd rather fight and fall free than live like I used to." Jace gave a small smile. Not proud, not happy, but respectful. "You sound like someone who's already free." They packed quietly. Supplies were low, but the ship could still fly short range. As they lifted into the sky again, Liara felt something strange inside her, like she was stepping into her own story for the first time. The black market station was hidden in the crater of a long-dead moon. From above, it looked like ruins, but inside, it was alive with deals, danger, and desperate people. Jace landed the ship on the far edge of the station. "Stay close," he told her. "Don't talk unless you have to." She followed him through the halls, tight metal corridors lit by flickering lights. Everyone watched them, some with curiosity, others with hunger. They entered a large room filled with traders and shady merchants. A tall woman with steel arms stood near a pile of fuel cells. Jace approached her. "We need fuel. Fast." The woman raised an eyebrow. "You have credits." "No," he said, "but I have tech. Rare human tech." He showed her a device, small, old, but powerful. The woman leaned in. "Where'd you get this?" "Earth," he said. She smiled. "Then it's worth something." She handed over the fuel cells. Jace started loading them into a cart. But as they turned to leave, a voice rang out. Well, look what the storm blew in." They froze. A tall Valeri male stood at the doorway. His eyes locked onto Liara. "Little princess," he sneered. "Didn't expect to see you here." Liara stepped back. "Varnick." He smirked. "Your father owed me. He said I could take you after the sale." Jace stepped between them. "She's not for sale." Varnick laughed. "Oh, but she was. And technically, still is." He snapped his fingers. Two guards stepped forward. Jace reached for his weapon, but stopped. Too many eyes. Too many guns. "We leave," he said to Varnick, voice low. "Or this whole place burns." Varnick narrowed his eyes. "You think the humans still have power here?" Jace didn't blink. "They don't. I do." Silence filled the room. No one moved. Then Varnick hissed. "One day, she'll be mine again." "Not while I'm breathing," Jace replied. He grabbed Liara's hand. "Come on." They rushed out, fuel in hand, heartbeats loud in their ears. Back on the ship, Liara leaned against the wall, breathing hard. "I hate that man," she whispered. "He's afraid now," Jace said. "That's good." "But he's right," she said. "Technically, I still belong to someone." Jace looked at her. "Then we change that," he said. How? We find a way to make your freedom official. Legal, recorded. No one can own you again. Is that possible? He nodded slowly. But it won't be easy. And once we start, we can't stop. Lyra took a deep breath. Then let's start. A name written in fire. Jace didn't sleep that night. He sat in the cockpit, watching the stars shift through the glass, his fingers tapping the edge of the console. His mind wasn't calm. It was preparing. For war, for change, for something bigger than either of them. Lyra stood quietly behind him. She hadn't spoken in hours, but now she placed a hand on his shoulder. "You're thinking too much," she said softly. He looked up at her. "I'm thinking of how to make you truly free." Lyra sat next to him. "You already did that." He shook his head. "Not yet. Not where it counts." On the edges of human and alien systems, there was a registry, an ancient database older than the guild itself. It stored ownership records, legal identities, and contracts across star systems. If someone's name was listed there as property, it meant they could be hunted, traded, or reclaimed. Lyra's name was still there. "I know a guy," Jace finally said. "Old friend. Deep in the outlaw systems. If anyone can erase your name from that list, it's him." Lyra nodded. "Then let's go." The ship soared again, this time toward a place no sane traveler liked to visit. Burnpoint Station. It floated in space like a ghost. Dead ships surrounded it, chained to the station's arms like broken bones. Red lights flickered behind thick metal walls. People here didn't ask questions and didn't forgive mistakes. As they landed, Jace whispered, "Stay close. This place bites." Inside, the air smelled like oil and fire. Creatures from dozens of species moved through smoke-filled halls. Lyra's eyes darted around, but she kept close. They entered a small room guarded by two massive lizard men. Jace knocked once. A scanner buzzed, and the door slid open. A man sat at a cluttered desk, half his face metal. One eye glowed red. "Well, well," he said, smiling. "The ghost returns." "Vex," Jace said. "Still alive?" "Barely," the man chuckled. Then he looked at Lyra. "And who's the girl?" "She's the reason I'm here." Vex nodded slowly. "Let me guess. Another one trying to disappear." "Not disappear," Jace said. "She wants her freedom. Real freedom." Vex's smile faded. "That's harder. Riskier." "I'll pay," Jace said. "Whatever it takes." Vex leaned back. "Not about credits. This system's locked tight. If I burn her name from it, it sends an alert. A big one." "To who?" Lyra asked. "To everyone who ever claimed to own you," he said. "It'll be like drawing a red circle around your face." "I don't care," she said, voice steady. "I want to be erased from their chains." Vex looked at her carefully. "You've got fire. I respect that." He stood, went to a large terminal, and plugged a thick cable into the wall. Lights flickered across the screen. "Name?" he asked. "Lyra Vaughn." He typed fast. The screen lit up with records, old ones. Her sale, her family's contract, even her price. Lyra turned away. It hurt to see herself reduced to numbers. Vex cracked his knuckles. "Ready?" Jace and Lyra nodded. Vex tapped a button. A warning flashed red across the screen. "Pyramid and int, DELET, QONFIRMD." He tapped again. The lights dimmed. The station shook. Alarms didn't sound. But somewhere, across the galaxy, a digital bell had rung. "It's done," Vex said. "But you've got maybe 24 hours before bounty signals go out." "We won't be here that long," Jace replied. As they turned to leave, Vex grabbed Lyra's hand for a second. "Don't waste your freedom. Most don't get a second chance." She nodded once. "I won't." They ran back to the ship. Engines roared to life. They escaped just as a long-range scanner picked up 3 bounty ships jumping into the sector. Back in space, Lyra sat by the window, staring out. Her name, the one she was born with, was now her own again. No one could claim her. No one could trade her. Not anymore. I feel like I'm breathing for the first time, she whispered. Jace smiled. You are. She looked at him. You did this for me. I'd do it again. But why? She asked. He paused. Because somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing you as someone to protect, and started seeing you as someone I care about. Lyra's breath caught. Her eyes softened. In the quiet of deep space, something passed between them. Not spoken, not rushed, but real. The heart that freed her. The stars looked calm, peaceful, as if the galaxy wasn't hunting them. But Lyra knew better. So did Jace. The moment her name had been wiped from the slave registry, bounty signals had gone out. Credits were promised for her return. The trade guild wanted her captured. Her family wanted her silenced. And strangers who had never even met her wanted her for profit. But she wasn't running anymore. Jace had changed their course. No more hiding. No more caves or broken systems. He was taking her to Solara, a neutral world where a voice could still be heard, where laws mattered, and where the trade guild's shadow wasn't welcome. We'll land in 6 hours, Jace said, hands on the controls. Lyra nodded from the co-pilot seat. And after that? He looked at her. Then we make it official. She knew what he meant. Not just the records, not just the name, but everything. Her freedom wasn't just a gift. It was hers now, by choice, and she was going to protect it. But peace wasn't ready to come so easily. An alert flashed on the screen. 3 ships. Fast. Armed. Closing in. Looks like the guild sent their best, Jace muttered. Lyra stood. We can outrun them. He shook his head. Not this time. She looked at him. Then we fight. He smiled faintly. You sound like me now. The first blast rocked the ship. Shields dropped to 60%. Lyra grabbed the control gun at her side. The ship had turrets. Basic, old, but still working. I'll take the left, she said. I'll hold the center, Jace replied. The second wave came fast. Lasers streaked past their ship. Lyra fired back, steady hands, sharp eyes. She wasn't a soldier, but she wasn't helpless either. One enemy ship clipped their wing. Sparks flew. Alarms screamed. Smoke filled the cockpit. I'm losing pressure, Jace shouted. Lyra ran to him. We're not crashing. Not now. She grabbed the stabilizer switch, flipping it just in time. The ship steadied, but they were falling. Fast. The planet Solara appeared below them, a golden world covered in cloud rings and bright blue oceans. Hold on, Jace yelled. They slammed through the atmosphere. Heat lit the ship's nose like fire. The enemy ships followed, but one broke apart mid-entry, swallowed by flame. Jace fought the controls. I can land us, just not gently. They hit ground hard, sliding across a grassy field near a wide city wall. Their ship finally stopped, broken but alive. Lyra opened her eyes. Blood trickled from her forehead, but she was breathing. Jace groaned beside her. He was alive too. Outside, sirens echoed. Local guards ran toward them. Solara's lawkeepers. Lyra stumbled out of the hatch, hands raised. They're coming, she said, pointing to the sky. The guild's coming for me. The guards lifted their weapons, but not at her. They aimed at the skies. 2 remaining enemy ships dropped into view, but this was Solara. And Solara didn't tolerate slavery. Missiles launched, cannons fired. The sky turned into light. Both enemy ships exploded before they could touch the ground. Lyra fell to her knees in shock. It was over. Really over. Later, she and Jace were treated in a Solaran medical bay. The news of her survival and her freedom spread across systems like wildfire. The trade guild tried to claim her, but Solara refused. In a quiet chamber, surrounded by light and silence, a Solaran judge asked her a simple question. "State your name." She stood tall. Lyra Vaughn, daughter of no one, slave to no one, free by choice. The judge nodded. "So recorded." She turned to Jace, who waited just outside the chamber. He looked tired, bruised, but proud. "It's done," she whispered. He smiled. "You did it." "No," she said. "We did it." She stepped closer. "I was born in a cage. You gave me the key. You walked out," he said. "That was all you." Then she looked into his eyes. Those human eyes that never once looked down on her, that never treated her like a price. "I want to stay by your side," she said. "Not because I owed you, but because I care." Jace took her hand. "Then stay, not as someone I saved, but as someone I love." Her heart beat louder than it ever had. She didn't need chains to bind her now. She didn't need contracts or names or birthright. She had a voice, a future, a heart that was hers, and a man who saw her soul before he ever touched her skin. And in that moment, Lyra knew. She wasn't just free. She was home.